All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are going to be doing our 2022 Auburn Tigers preview and prediction. Make sure you guys subscribe, as we'll be doing this for all 65 Power 5 teams and a handful of Group 5 ones. So looking at this coaching staff and some of the highlights of the offseason, Brian Hudson, 6-7 in his first season. Very bumpy tenure. Did almost close it on a high note by potentially beating Alabama. Took them to a couple overtimes. Very impressive to see them play that close late in the season against them and Houston. Looking at offensive coordinator, Eric Hazoo, second year with the Tigers, first as OC. Defensive coordinator, Jeff Schmedding, this will be his first year as the play caller. He was also with Hudson at Boise State. It's been a wild offseason, Nick, for Auburn. It really hasn't made a lot of sense. Austin Davis, he was hired to be the offensive coordinator, which I didn't understand the hiring to begin with. And then he left after a couple weeks. Derek Mason also departed for, I think, a substantial pay cut at Oklahoma State. 22 players have also transferred since November. Tank Bigsby at one point was going to transfer, ends up staying put. What's going on with the Tigers, and is the future with Hudson really as bad as a lot of people are assuming?
There is so much chaos on the plains for Auburn. It really didn't look like Hudson was going to even make it past this offseason. I honestly thought he was going to get fired. And you look at the departures, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, like you said, hiring Davis. And Derek Mason takes a very substantial pay cut. He loses a ton of money to go take the job at Oklahoma State. And it's like, what is going on there? 22 players leave the program. Bo Nix leaves the program. He was supposed to be the second coming there, the hero coming in, the son of Pat Nix, and then it doesn't work out. The fan base treats him poorly. He leaves, and then a lot of question marks. If they lost Tank Bigsby, this team would be a completely rudderless ship, but they keep Bigsby, who I think is a huge get to get him returning. A lot of interesting moves here. I don't really know what to expect out of a defensive coordinator. I don't know if that was the right hire. They seem to be all over the place. Hudson doesn't really seem to have the ship in the right direction, but he survives the offseason. He's going to be back this year. He's coming off that 6-7 season. Interesting to see how it goes. A lot of fans in Auburn were wondering, why are they paying so much to buy out Gus Malzahn when they can just finish 6-7, right? Was it worth that money? We'll have to see long term if it works out for Brian Hudson, but it's been a weird offseason for sure.
I don't think Hudson was their first hire anyways. They just whiffed on so many guys that kind of had to settle for him, it seemed like. That was well over a year ago, so nothing you can do about it now. Three-way battle for the quarterback position on offense, though. You got all former transfers, oddly enough. TJ Finley, there's no glaring trait other than his toughness and jumps off the screen. He couldn't even walk against Alabama. He was still out there putting it on for his boys. Major respect for that. Zach Calzada, he beat Alabama last year, but that was the only game he really impressed in. I'm not a fan. He missed all the spring with an injury. Calzada, I don't expect him to be much of a threat here for the starting job, but I do think they all have an equal shot, and that includes Robbie Ashford, the Oregon transfer. Dual threat, plays with confidence, very shaky accuracy. No one knows who will win this starting QB position. It's a coin toss. I'm going with Robbie Ashford. I like the traits he brings to the table. I think, the more game reps, the more experience he gets, the accuracy will certainly get fixed. I just like the confidence he played with, though, in the spring game and his abilities on play action, which I think they should have plenty of that this fall. Who's your pick for this QB battle?
Robbie Ashford is certainly a wild card in this situation. I'm going to go with sort of the incumbent player here, TJ Finley. I think, like you said, that toughness he showed against Alabama, guy could barely walk and he's out there making plays. Fun for the fact that there was a Tank Bigsby mess up an opportunity there to give Alabama some time at the end of the game. Auburn could have won that game. They should have won that game. A lot of people think, Finley was hurt. He was playing like a warrior. He really showed a lot of passion for me. I think Finley definitely gives them the best chance to succeed right now. Like you said, Calzada did beat Alabama. Certainly gets himself a legendary status in College Station for that, but there's a reason he transferred. If he was the guy, he probably would have stayed in College Station, wouldn't have had to transfer to Auburn. I think it was interesting. Losing Bo Nix, I think, was the wrong decision. I think Bo Nix should have stayed at Auburn. I thought he really was the best player out of this bunch, but Finley is the guy that's still there. Like I said, the incumbent starter, technically, if you think about it. I think Finley gives him the best chance to succeed right now, but Ashford certainly is a wild card. I'd like to see what he can do. Definitely an interesting player to look at for the future.
Calzada does have those 10 starts from a year ago, so he certainly has a leg up in that area. 10 starts in this conference is very notable. Looking at the running back group, though, Tank Bigsby, 1K plus yards, 10 scores last year. A shifty, hard-nosed runner. PFF going into the year gave him a 99 overall rating if this was a video game. I don't think that's quite how good he is, but he certainly has that potential. Him and Jarquez Hunter, these guys are nasty. Hunter last year averaged over 6 yards per carry, 593 yards on 89 touches with 3 touchdowns. Plenty of explosiveness, plenty of athleticism in this backfield. They only averaged 161 yards per game last year on the ground, 117 per game in the conference. Considering the two numbers these backs put up, they should be doing a lot better than that from a yards per game basis. How do you think that's going to fare in this upcoming season? Do you think that's going to improve, or do you think that'll decline?
I certainly think the running game is going to improve for Auburn this year. I think when you look at a guy like Tank Bibb, he's only going to get better as time progresses. Nearly 1,100 yards rushing on the ground, 10 carries for touchdowns as well. Very physical runner, bruiser. I love the way that he gets off the line of scrimmage like that. I think he's a very talented running back. I think they should run the ball a lot this year. I think the offense should definitely go through the running when you have Hunter as well. That can be a nice back, sort of complement Bigsby as well. These two are great running backs. It kind of boggles my mind that they only had 117 yards per game. Like you said, that's in the SEC games. That's a crazy number. I think they should really start ground and pounding more. They have a lot of opportunity here with those running backs. I think they can take a step forward for sure.
Yeah, there was times where it seemed like they kind of went away from the run game. They probably should have tried to do so more. They only had one game of 200-plus yards in the conference. That was against Ole Miss in a win. So I think this running game is certainly a strong suit, and they need to use that to their benefit this fall with a gloomy quarterback battle. I wouldn't say it's that gloomy, but when you have three guys, you don't have a guy. So that's certainly an issue. Looking at this receiving group, the only notable pass catchers really back. Shedrick Jackson, he had 40 grabs for 527 yards. Javarius Johnson, 5'10", 159. They did bring in three-star Jay Fair. I like Malcolm Johnson. He's an interesting player. Elite speed, 6'1", 195 stature, mixed with the physicality, the wind versus press. I think he's certainly been one of their biggest breakout players in the receiving group. And then tight end John Samuel Schnaker, 33 receptions, 400-plus yards. I like him, and I like Leighton King, Tyler Fromm, of course, the brother Jake, former Georgia quarterback. I think the tight ends will certainly get more involved this year. They were in the spring game. Hopefully that's a theme they use throughout 2022. This receiving group, kind of shaky, but I like the potential they have. How are you feeling?
There's a lot of potential there with Jay Fair. I really like him coming out of high school. I think he's a very talented player. And bringing back Jackson for his COVID year of eligibility, I think it's a good leadership role to have in the locker room. He's going to be that vocal voice, strong figure in the locker room. I really like that a lot. I think that's a good role. And like you said, the tight ends, I expect the tight ends to have a lot more impact this year. Look at the guys like Tyler Fromm, like you said, Samuel Snaker. I think that's a solid tight end core. I think they all return. They don't lose anyone in the tight end room. They have that cohesiveness. I like it a lot. And I think Fair will have a breakout year. I like to see him make impact as a freshman. I think he'll get some good starting time. Interested to see how this wide receiving core does, but I expect Auburn to run the ball a bit more this year, so maybe the wide receiving game is not as important for the Tigers. Be interested to see how it goes.
We should note that Kobe Hudson was one of the transfers they lost, their top pass catcher from a year ago. Him and Hudson, it's pretty noted, pretty obvious by now that those two did not get along very well. He's now at UCF. Well, who's at UCF? Gus Malzahn. So another reason to not be very optimistic about Hudson and this coaching staff. Offensive line for Auburn, I thought they were really good last season. A 4.7 yards per carry. We just kind of bashed the running game, but they did almost average 5 per carry. A fifth fewest sacks in the conference. Bam had a field day, though. But other than that, I guess in that game, that was also a product of no one being open and no run game. That was a very gloomy day for that offense. That's why their offensive line really just got beat up so well. Commitment to the run game, though, was lacking. The passing game did not sustain enough balance. Am I making excuses? Because it kind of feels like I am. They did have issues versus those bigger defensive lines, though. They get 5 seniors back. That includes Keandre Jones, redshirt junior, 6'4", 345. None of these guys were all SEC performers. Overall, just a great group of players. I think they'll grow and get better this fall. And that's another reason to be optimistic about this running game.
I really like the offensive line here. I think they have a real potential to strengthen for the running game. I think they bring back the right number of guys. They bring back some leadership. I really like the role. I look at Jones, like you said, I think he's a solid player stepping in there. Look at some other seniors that come back. I think there's solid players across the board. Cameron Stutz is a solid player. He comes back as well. I think this is a really solid offensive line. I think they can make some good moves here. And hopefully that can kind of set up a nice holes, get some pathways going for the running game.
Yeah, Brandon Council, Alec Jones, a few of those guys, Nick Brahms at center. I like this offensive line they have. Looking at defense, this is a strong group of edge rushers. They only allowed 8 rushing touchdowns last year as well. That's 5th in FBS. Derek Hall, he terrorized Alabama himself. 12.5 tackles for loss this past season, 9 sacks. EQ Leota also had double-figure tackles for loss with 7 sacks. And then Colby Wooden, he's one of my favorite players on this front. Not that athletic, but he fights hard with his hands. He detaches from blocks like it's nothing. 9 sacks in 2 years. It's not great, but he added a lot of weight the past few years. Came in 230 when he first arrived at Auburn. He's 278 last year, and I think he'll add a few more pounds there. What do you feel about this trio up front? And Jason Jones, you feel about him being 6'6", 320, coming over from Oregon to be the nose tackle?
Jason Jones is a great pickup out of the transfer portal. Like you said, I love the size on him. Really talented player. Got a couple years of eligibility left. Can make an impact instantly. You look at a guy like Hall. I think he's a really talented player. Made a lot of impact last year. I think he's going to be a good guy to look at this year. He's going to make some impacts for sure. Coming back as a senior, I love that leadership. Going to be great in the tackle department. And like you said, Wooden's another guy interesting. Confirmed to return. I'm really interested to see what he can do. I like what he can do on make some good plays as well. They lose a lot. Definitely it's the departures to the portal, eligibility exhausted, stuff like that. But I think in general, this defense will be good. I think they'll be around the same way. I think they'll be able to get to the quarterback again. Don't think they'll give up a lot of rushing ground game. I think they'll make a lot of sacks. I think this defense is definitely going to be a lot stronger in the offense.
They also landed the top JUCO prospect, Jeffrey Maha. Quick burst, respectable agility, some long arms. I think all these guys will contribute one way or another. I like this defensive front. Looking at the middle of the defense, at linebacker, Owen Papoy, only 5 games last year, but had 93 tackles in 2020. Great pursuit. When he finds the lane, he gets downhill in a hurry. He does tend to over pursuit, though, and that's an issue. And then he'll also be late at times. He's a strong tackler, though, like what he brings to the table. He's going to be a veteran leader in the middle. They do lose Kobe McLean, but I think Eugene Asante, the UNC transfer, he didn't boom like expected last year. He was important early, but wasn't on the field after September. Very good in coverage, some good speed. I think Eugene Asante is going to be one of the better newcomers in the SEC.
I like Asante coming in. I also like two of the freshmen they're bringing in, Robert Woodyard and Powell Gordon. I think they're interesting players. They might get some opportunities this year. I like the way this team looks. I think bringing back Cameron Brown as well, redshirt junior. I think he's a very talented player. I kind of like what the linebacker looks like. I think this is a bit of an underrated linebacking core. I think there's some serious opportunity here for some potential, make some good plays. I think Asante will have a nice impact. He's a bit of a leader, like you said. Didn't quite work out at Chapel Hill for him, but I think he has a nice chance here in Auburn, make some good plays.
Looking at the secondary, despite having Roger McCreary, one of the best in the nation all around, this was an average group at best. Ian Pritchard is back. He was not very good at times. He is the most experienced, though, so anchor down one cornerback role. DJ James comes over from Oregon. He should probably do the other one. Some guys in the back end, though. Jalen Simpson, I think he's going to find a role in this defense. He's a great tackler. On paper, they brought in a lot of really good guys. Austin Osbury, Marquise Gilbert, Caleb Wooden. They got a lot of talent, it seems, but this was a shaky group last year. They also just lost a first-teamer. What are your thoughts on the secondary? Do you think they're going to boom, or do you think they'll bust here in 2022?
The bust potential is certainly there. They lose McCreary, they lose Smoke Monday as well in general. I think that's just definitely going to be some pain, some growing pains there. I definitely like the guys they bring in. I think they have some real potential. DJ James, I think, like you said, solid player. I like the way some of these guys look. Eric Reed Jr., I think he might have a potential to step up there. He returns as well. I think he's a solid player. I expect some step-ups, but I think in general this defense is going to that secondary is going to take a little bit of a step back because they are losing two pieces that are very strong in McCreary and Monday. It'll be interesting to see what they can do and kind of make that work.
I think this is probably the brightest position group for the future on this football team, just because they added so many guys. They got scorched everywhere else, it seemed, with transfers and departures, other than the secondary. And of course, the defensive line, they're obviously great as well. But the secondary, they added a lot of players. They didn't lose much. I don't think they lost anybody to the transfer portal. If anything, they added a few. So that's certainly encouraging. The secondary, it's got some good potential. I'm interested to see what happens.
I think it's also important to note that they bring back Anders Carlson, the kicker, COVID year of eligibility, strong kicker. What a leg. He crushed it 50 yards out as well. Very talented player. They bring him back. Also Oscar Chapman as well, the other kicker. They got two strong kickers as well. The kicking game will be strong for Auburn this year.
Carlton, just like his brother, both those guys have phenomenal legs. Very good special teams unit for Auburn. Looking at the prediction here, the schedule's not that tough. Mercer and San Jose State, a few tune-ups there in September, and then they dive kind of head first into conference play right after the game with Penn State. I have them beating the Nittany Lions at home. This is not a team that ran the ball very well last year. Multiple departures across the entire team, really, for the Nittany Lions. I think that'll be a tough, close game. They played them really hard last year on the road. I think that they beat Penn State September 17th. How about you?
That game at Happy Valley last year was one of my favorite games of the year. I thought it was a really good way to open up the season. I think this game will be very close. In my personal opinion, I think Penn State will beat them, but definitely be loud at Jordan Hare. I think Auburn has potential. It's really a toss-up. Honestly, you can flip a coin and pick a team here. Very close game. I can definitely see why you picked Penn State to win this game. Auburn to win this game. I'm personally going to take Penn State right now, but I definitely think that can change as the season progresses.
Yeah, I have them starting 5-0. Matter of fact, with wins over Missouri and LSU, there's no reason why they shouldn't be at least 3-1 or 4-0 heading into October, and then they play at Georgia, at Ole Miss. Is going to be very tough matchups all around. It seems a variety of two very different styles of offense. These two teams, I think they'll get wins against the Tigers. I think they'll pick up a home win against Arkansas, though. They had a field day last year running the ball. It was one of the best days of the year running the ball. I think they'll do that once again. at Mississippi State. I think they'll lose that game. Remember last year they were up like 20, 30 points and they blew it. Texas A&M at home, I think that's a loss. And then on the road at Alabama to cap off the season. I think 7-5 is a very fair prediction, especially with how much this team lost and with the uncertainty at a multitude of positional groups. Is that a fair record? Do you see more or less losses?
This team should definitely be bowl eligible. They should be definitely knocking on the door. 7-5 is kind of right where they belong, in my opinion. I think they could maybe 1 or 2 games here swings and roundabouts a little bit and changes up. This team should be easily making a bowl game. Is that what the expectation in Auburn though? Do they want to just be scraping a bowl game? Do they want to be playing in the Birmingham Bowl? It's interesting to see if Brian Harsin can start to develop this. Because I don't know how much fans are going to enjoy another 7-5 season like that. Interesting to see how it goes for sure.
Yep, Auburn, interesting football team as always, but 7-5 is the final prediction. That's going to be it for today. Nick, appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment who you want to see next. See you next time.